Hello and welcome back to Medieval History. Today, we're delving into a document that, at first glance, looks like a dusty old piece of parchment, but whose principles resonate through every courtroom and democratic parliament in the Western world. We're talking about the Magna Carta, a treaty signed under duress in a muddy field in 1215. This wasn't initially a grand declaration of human rights, but a desperate attempt to rein in a tyrannical king. Yet, its reluctant birth laid the foundation for ideas of liberty, justice, and the rule of law that still define us today. To understand the Magna Carta, we must first understand the king who was forced to sign it, King John of England. John was, to put it mildly, an unpopular monarch. He had a reputation for cruelty, extortion, and incompetence. He had lost most of England's continental possessions, including Normandy, to the French King Philip Augustus, earning him the nickname John Lackland. He taxed his barons relentlessly to fund his endless, unsuccessful wars, often demanding arbitrary fees and scutage, money paid in lieu of military service, far beyond traditional custom. But it wasn't just money. John also frequently abused the legal system, ignoring established customs, seizing baronial lands, and imposing harsh punishments without proper trial. He clashed bitterly with the Church, particularly with Pope Innocent III, over the appointment of the Archbishop of Canterbury, leading to England being placed under an interdict, a ban on most religious services, and John himself being excommunicated. By 1215, the English barons had simply had enough. They had endured financial ruin and a king who seemed to believe he was above all law and custom. They marched to London, unified in their demands for reform. The confrontation came to a head on June 15, 1215, in a meadow named Runnymede near Windsor Castle. The rebel barons, backed by the citizens of London, presented King John with a list of grievances. Surrounded by a superior force and with no room to maneuver, John was forced to affix his royal seal to what was initially called the Articles of the Barons, which quickly became known as the Magna Carta, Latin for Great Charter. It's crucial to understand that this was not a document born of democratic ideals. It was a feudal peace treaty primarily designed to protect the rights and privileges of the barons, not the common people. Its language is dense, specific, and often focused on the details of feudal custom, inheritance, and taxation. However, within these specific clauses lay revolutionary principles. Ironically, the Magna Carta was an almost immediate failure as a peace treaty. King John, deeply resentful, appealed to Pope Innocent III, who quickly annulled the document, declaring it illegal and void. This sparked the First Barons' War, where the barons invited Prince Louis of France, later King Louis VIII, to take the English throne. John died in 1216 in the midst of this war, leaving his 9-year-old son, Henry III, to inherit a kingdom in chaos. Despite its initial failure, the Magna Carta was almost immediately reissued by young Henry III's regents in slightly revised versions in 1216, 1217, and most importantly, in 1225. It was this 1225 version that was entered into English statute law and would be confirmed by successive monarchs over 40 times in the centuries that followed, giving it enduring legal authority. So, what were these lasting principles that emerged from a failed treaty? 1. Rule of law. Perhaps the most fundamental principle is that no one, not even the king, is above the law. Clause 61, removed in later reissues, but central to the original spirit, created a committee of 25 barons to ensure the king adhered to the charter, effectively creating a system of accountability for the monarch. Even without this specific clause, the idea that a king could be legally bound by a document was revolutionary. 2. Due process and fair trial. Clause 39 is iconic. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned, or stripped of his rights or possessions, or outlawed or exiled, or deprived of his standing in any other way, nor will we proceed with force against him, or send others to do so, except by the lawful judgment of his equals, or by the law of the land. This is the cornerstone of due process and the right to a fair trial, guaranteeing that legal action could only be taken according to established law, not royal whim. 3. No taxation without representation. Clause 12 stated that no scutage or aid, types of feudal taxes, could be levied in our kingdom without the common council of our kingdom. While this initially applied only to the barons, it laid the very first seed for the later idea that the king needed the consent of his subjects, or at least their representatives, to raise taxes, a concept that would later fuel the rise of Parliament. 4. Limits on royal power. The Magna Carta explicitly limited the king's arbitrary power in several areas, from seizing property to controlling the church. It affirmed certain existing customs and legal rights, enshrining them in a written document that the king could not easily ignore. The principles of Magna Carta, especially the idea of common council for taxation, directly contributed to the formation of Parliament. In the 13th and 14th centuries, kings frequently summoned representatives, not just barons, but knights and burgesses from towns, to Parliament to secure their consent for taxes. This practice, rooted in Magna Carta's spirit, eventually evolved into the powerful legislative body we know today. The Magna Carta's influence extended far beyond medieval England. Its ideas were dormant for centuries, but they were dramatically resurrected during the 17th century struggles between Parliament and the Crown, particularly by legal scholars like Sir Edward Coke. Coke championed Magna Carta as ancient precedent for parliamentary rights and individual liberties, using it to challenge the absolute power of kings like Charles I. This revival made the Magna Carta a foundational document for modern democratic thought. It influenced the American Constitution and its Bill of Rights, particularly the concepts of due process and trial by jury. It inspired later movements for freedom and justice around the world, from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to countless national constitutions. So, while it began as a pragmatic peace treaty between a king and his rebellious barons, born of feudal grievances and quickly annulled, the Magna Carta's core principles proved to be incredibly resilient. It established the revolutionary idea that governmental power should not be absolute, but subject to law. It reminds us that even in a seemingly backward era, the seeds of our most cherished liberties were sown. What aspect of the Magna Carta do you find most surprising or impactful? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to explore more documents that changed the course of history, hit that like button and subscribe to Medieval History for weekly videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.